the air traffic controller, and from Kazakh 1907's black box deduce that it had descended below its assigned flight level of 15,000 feet. The possible answer to why may lie with Captain Timothy J. Place, commander of a United States Air Force aircraft and the sole eyewitness to the mid-air collision.
We noticed out of our right-hand side a large cloud that lit up with an orange glow. The glow stayed and became brighter in intensity.
The mid-air collision happened in the clouds. Is it possible that Kazakh 1907 had descended due to bad weather? It had happened before. On December the 19th, 1973, the Delhi airport is enveloped in a thick fog. Visibility is down to 1,000 meters. A Lufthansa Boeing 707 undershoots the runway and crash lands 1,500 feet short. The Inquiry Commission finds out that the co-pilot who was flying the aircraft did not monitor the descent adequately. He was too busy trying to land the aircraft in the sudden haze and thick fog that impaired his visibility. Could the same thing have happened to Kazakh 1907? Could they have been caught in a freak weather condition? Did co-pilot Jangarov not monitor the altitude? Could he have been too busy battling bad weather?
The sorts of weather conditions that can cause an aircraft to lose a great deal of altitude are things like thunderstorm activity, where you get updrafts and downdrafts in the center of a thundercloud. That could have caused one of them to descend or another to climb.
But on November the 12th, 1996, the Met Department had not issued a severe weather warning. It was slightly foggy, there were scattered clouds, and that was about it. Most importantly, Kazakh 1907's cockpit voice recorder did not record any intra-cockpit conversation relating to bad weather. Neither did the digital flight data recorder record sudden changes in the aircraft's movements, nor any severe weather condition. There was no sudden descent. Kazakh 1907 had descended gradually.
I don't think that the actual weather conditions would have caused the Kazakh aircraft to descend at all.
It was like a jigsaw puzzle whose pieces just didn't fit. Kazakh 1907 had descended below its assigned 15,000 feet. But the altimeter found in the wreckage was frozen at 14,895 feet. If that's the altitude at which the collision occurred, it meant that even the Saudi aircraft had breached its assigned altitude. It had climbed above 14,000 feet. Now, all the answers lay in the black box of Saudi 763. At the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau in Farnborough in the United Kingdom, the black box of Saudi 763 was cut open. The investigators heard the voices of the crew of Saudi 763 for the first time. It was clear from the tapes that the air traffic controller had instructed the Saudi crew to climb to 14,000 feet and stay there until further notice. Saudi 763's digital flight data recorder was analyzed. The altitude of impact was 14,000 feet. The margin of error was plus or minus 120 feet. Saudi 763 did not ascend above 14,000 feet. Kazakh 1907 had descended below 15,000 feet. Why had Kazakh 1907 come down? Why was one of the altimeters in the Kazakh aircraft frozen at 14,895 feet? What could possibly be the explanation for it? What had happened in the cockpit of Kazakh 1907? It has been 5 years since the dissolution of the Soviet Union. The Commonwealth of Independent States are struggling to stabilize their economies amidst a politically volatile environment. Their airlines are no different. Kazakhstan Airlines, the state-owned airline of the country, has a bad safety record. It flies rickety aircraft, sometimes with a cockpit crew not conversant with flying outside the former Soviet Union. There have been numerous crashes and near misses, 3 in 1995 itself. But as far as Kazakh 1907 is concerned, the Ilyushin jet did not have any technical snags, and the crew was well conversant with flying outside the former Soviet Union. In fact, Captain Cherepenov had 708 hours of flight time on international routes. Co-pilot Jangirov, the pilot flying, had 207 hours. Flight engineer Chuprov had 1,178 hours. Radio operator Rep had 645, and navigator Arabayev had 581 hours of flight time on international routes. How is it possible that a crew with such experience did not level the aircraft at the assigned altitude of 15,000 feet?
As far as the IL-76 is concerned, you have to physically level out the aircraft at a particular height and thereafter press the height lock and then maintain the required speed at that particular height. It is done by the autopilot itself, but by actual physical involvement of the pilot or the co-pilot.
But in the cockpit voice recording, there are no call-outs by the co-pilot or the pilot to the flight engineer for more power to maintain speed for a particular altitude, a prerequisite for leveling an aircraft.
A plain simple explanation could be that it was a controlled flight to a lower level resulting into a collision.
A controlled flight. That means that the crew of Kazakh 1907 descended below 15,000 feet with intent. They kept descending because they never knew that their assigned altitude was 15,000 feet.
Every accident is an avoidable accident. Every accident could have been an avoidable accident. But for certain failure on the part of a human element.
It's as simple and as tragic as that. A 1 in 100 million possibility became a horrific reality due to human error. 349 lives are lost in a split second because one of the aircraft did not maintain its assigned height. How could it all have happened? Every accident, every disaster has a sequence, links in the chain of events, where one mistake leads to another, which finally leads to the catastrophe. In the world's worst mid-air collision, the sequence started 8 minutes before impact, at 6:33 p.m., when Saudi 763 takes off. VK Datta assigns them 10,000 feet. Kazakh 1907 is at about 23,000 feet. Both aircraft are in the same airspace on opposite headings. This should not have happened. This is the first mistake, the first link in the chain of events that leads to the disaster. To avoid this, the airspace above Delhi Airport should have been unidirectional. There should be 2 separate air corridors, one for the departing aircraft and the other for arriving aircraft. Then 2 aircraft on opposite headings would never share the same airspace. But this wasn't the case at Delhi Airport. There just wasn't enough room. Part of the airspace is reserved for the Indian Air Force.
Why do we always have to wait for any kind of disaster, a catastrophic disaster? Can't we do it before so many innocent lives are lost? There may be certain constraints which I can understand, but not to an extent where